My name's Alex. I came in from Austin, Texas. This is my first time in Ukraine, and I am super grateful to be here and to talk about one of my favorite subjects in the world, which is customer acquisition. In particular, we're going to go pretty heavy on SEO, but this model can basically be applied to any type of business. So, before we talk about anything related to growth, marketing, SEO, I want to talk about books. So who here has read *Sapiens*? It's a lot of people. Everybody's at least heard of the book, though, right? It's pretty popular. So I am a reader. I'm kind of always in the market for a good book recommendation. This is me. So whether implicitly or explicitly, I'm always looking for a good book. Let's pretend that this is an explicit ask. I'm at like maybe a conference. We're talking later. I'm like, what have you guys been reading lately? Somebody tells me, you should check out *Sapiens*. Now, I hadn't heard of the book before, so I'm a little curious. I'm slightly likely to purchase that book. It's not incredibly likely. There's a lot of books out there. There's a lot of recommendations. It's just one out of many, but I was at 0 before. Now it's on my radar. But let's say another person in that group also says, yeah, I read *Sapiens* too. It was incredible. You should definitely check it out. And then another person, and another, and another. And soon we've got this chorus effect, or an ensemble, one might say a surround sound effect, where everybody's talking about *Sapiens*. And at this point, I am super curious. I'm at least going to go to my local bookstore or Amazon and read some reviews and check it out. And I'm probably going to buy it just because I don't want to have FOMO and miss out on the book that everybody's reading. In reality, of course, this could look much different. It doesn't have to be at a conference. It doesn't have to be you explicitly saying, show me a book recommendation. It could be that the author appeared on a podcast. It could be that they were on a New York Times book review. It could be actually that a couple people did say, you should check out *Sapiens*, but eventually it hits that critical point where you, as I did, end up buying the book. Now that's the long story short. The short story a little longer is that my roommate also bought the book on the exact same day. So we're both in marketing, so we sat down and talked to each other and we're like, why'd you get *Sapiens*? Like, what led you to, that purchase? We were kind of nerding out on the customer journey there. We found out that it was a pretty similar process, down to the T, down to the exact moment in which we purchased it. So, of course, we run in similar friend groups. So we'd heard, many people mention the book. We've heard it on podcasts and all that stuff. But it was actually this Facebook post from my former boss, Pep Laya, at Conversion XL, that pushed us both to buy it on the exact same day. So as two marketers, watching this customer journey in real time was a special thing for us. That's just an anecdote. That's about how customers buy nowadays, how you have to hear it from many sources. But I've got some facts, too. I've got some research. So on average, consumers are going to visit 3 websites before they make a purchase. We do wish that they would just look at our website, because that's where all the shiny marketing materials are, and we can basically sell them things. But now the information is pretty freely available, so people are usually going to shop around, and they're usually going to go to comparison sites and whatnot beforehand. And then actually the frequency of messaging leads to higher levels of awareness and purchase intent. So the more you hear or see an ad, the more likely you are to actually check it out. It's just a thing where there's so much noise in the world that after 4, 5, 6 times, you're like, I should buy that Chrysler, or I should read *Sapiens*, right? It takes a couple times. This is common advertising wisdom. So I studied advertising in college, and we learned about frequency and reach. So when you're buying ads, you look into reach, as in who you can target and how many people. And you also look at frequency based on how many times they hear that ad before eventually they say, I should check that out. That sounds cool. So that's where we derived the surround sound strategy. Essentially, I borrowed this from a Ramit Sethi blog post. He was talking about Tim Ferriss when he launches a book. You'll notice that when he launches a book, he's on all of the podcasts, all of the blog posts. He's doing all the interviews in a period of about 2 to 4 weeks. So at one point, you're eventually like, dang, I got to check this out. He's everywhere. So it's basically saying the more people hear about your product from different sources, the more likely they're likely to check you out as somebody seriously to consider. So as a model, we can look at it like this. With the increase of mentions, you have a linear increase of probability of purchase. So 1 mention, it's somewhat likely, but not super likely. And then with a ton of mentions, it's very likely you're going to get somebody to buy. So translated to the software industry, this is a fairly simple example. This is something you might have a conversation with your friends, or you could go to Google, but you say, I need a live chat tool. And if every source says you should try HubSpot, you're going to be pretty darn likely to try HubSpot. I need a meeting scheduling app. You should try HubSpot. it's very likely they're going to try HubSpot. Same thing with an email marketing tool. You know where this is going. You should try HubSpot. It's free. People are going to be very likely to purchase it if they hear it from all their friends. That's the whole deal. So implementation-wise, that's the theory. That's the whole kind of academic thing. You could apply that to basically any type of business. The next part's going to talk specifically about how we use this at HubSpot, and particularly it's going to get pretty heavy on content marketing and SEO. First, we're going to review the customer journey. This is a very common thing, especially if you're involved in startups or inbound marketing. The buyer's journey basically tracks the knowledge process from somebody going from the awareness stage, where they know they have a problem, but they don't know what the solutions are on the market, to the consideration down to the decision when they actually purchase something. So this is an example I gave in my workshop yesterday, but I recently bought this Oura ring. So it's like this sleep tracking ring from Finland. It's really cool. But I didn't wake up one day and say, like, I need a sleep tracking ring. Like, who knows that exists before, like, you actually do a little research. So I started out really at the awareness level doing all this research on how to improve my sleep, ended up with the consideration, and I was like, cool, there's supplements, there's melatonin, magnesium, all these different things you can do, there's different mattresses, there's sleep tracking rings. And then I ended up in the decision level where I was comparing among different solutions, doing pros and cons, searching Reddit for reviews and all that stuff, and I eventually bought it. It's super cool. It tells you in the morning how ready you are for the day. So with all these planes and jet lag, it basically told me this morning that I should just stay in bed. Kind of interesting. Awareness stage, like I was saying, you're there to build links, build domain authority, page rank, cast a super wide net, and get some relevant traffic that you could eventually hope to convert to maybe an email list, educate them on your product, and eventually maybe they'll come down and purchase. But it's all about building demand. And then the consideration and decision stage is about capturing demand. So it's about those product pages, the bottom of the funnel stuff, educating your customers on why you're different than your competitors, and hoping to nudge them in the right direction and purchase from you rather than the competitors. So at HubSpot, I map this all out on a scale from like high traffic, low intent, kind of like top of the funnel stuff, all the way down to low traffic, high intent stuff. And for the surround sound, I particularly care about this region. The bottom funnel, low traffic, high intent stuff. Basically that point in which somebody's asking, I need a live chat tool, or they're in the market for an actual software solution, and they're trying to get a big landscape of all the products out there, and we want to appear at those stages. So that would be basically trying to bridge this gap from consideration, when you're saying, like, what's all out there, to the decision where you're like, I need a particular product. And in B2B, this could look much different if you're in B2C. I gave the example of books and podcasts and Tim Ferriss and all that stuff. For us at HubSpot, when we're selling software, we care about three things. We want to rank our product page. So if we're selling a form builder, we want that to rank on a page. We want listicles, and we care about review sites. The reason for that is because every type of transactional search term, this is lead generation software, it comes up with the same three results on the SERP pages. So review sites, G2 Crowd, Capterra, all that good stuff. Product pages, we can still rank those. It's difficult. It's less and less often nowadays, but we still want our product page up there. And finally, listicles. So anybody can write a listicle. Top 10, form building tools or something like that. So we want to appear on those too. This is the case for pretty much every transactional search term. So this is live chat software. This is meeting scheduler. It's basically all of them. So we map this out. We want to rank our product page. This is all of our products that are freemium. We want a HubSpot listicle written, and then we want to appear on all the other listicles and review sites as well. So step by step, the three pieces, product page, review sites, listicles, I'll walk through a brief strategy on how we actually get those to rank. So product pages is kind of the pinnacle of the strategy. If somebody lands on a product page, they're going to be the highest converting. It's essentially like the bullseye where we want to put them anyway. The process of ranking product pages, I covered this in depth in the workshop yesterday. It's largely a process of content marketing. Because we're HubSpot, we have a big team of writers. We've done the inbound thing for a long time. Content strategy is a core piece of that, and I'll walk through a really, really brief kind of overview of what we do there. We do external link building, internal link site architecture, and then on-page SEO. So everything's kind of in place. We're crawlable, it's accessible, all that stuff. So the content strategy piece, we use a model You can read about this more on our website, on HubSpot.com, the pillar and cluster model. So essentially, we're grouping similar content together, and we're aiming it all back at a product page. So this is an example using our customer feedback software page. And then we link out, and we create pillar pages and cluster content around that. So this is another image there, but pillar content is essentially a huge ultimate guide. It's trying to be basically an evergreen piece of content people can always come back to. And then the cluster blog posts are going to be surrounding that and basically adding supporting long-tail keywords to that pillar page. Quick case study just to add some clarity to this. This was our, I was working on Service Hub when I first started at HubSpot. It's a new product. We didn't write any content about customer support or anything like that. So we had none of these keywords, but we wanted to rank for things like customer feedback software, customer satisfaction, et cetera. And then 6 months later, we were #1 for most of these and still climbing, actually. And the way we did it was the pillar and cluster model. So we're ranking our product page. That's #1. Fun story, this is actually before we had a product out, and we were beating people who had products out for years. So that was a really cool thing for the old ego. Pillar page, that was ranking, like I said, huge 5,000-word guide. Everybody can come and spend hours reading it, bookmark it. That's kind of the goal of these types of pieces. And then we had all the cluster blog posts too. So what is NPS, how to measure customer satisfaction, very tactical things that kind of support the main pillar page of customer feedback strategy. Yeah, basically blog posts. So that's the long of the short there. There's a lot more resources on our content strategy you can look up online. Happy to talk about that more later too. And also my whole workshop yesterday I think will be sent out, or I can send the slides there. Listicles is my favorite piece because it's the most underrated, and I hate listicles for the most part, but they work. So a listicle is this thing, top five contact form plugins or whatever. They've basically taken over the internet. The reason they have is because they're incredibly easy to write. So, is that showing up? So, listicles, as Paul Graham said, are the cheeseburger of the content world. If you go to a bad restaurant, you can order a hamburger pretty much anywhere, and you can expect that a chef is not going to go avant-garde and go crazy on it. It's a pretty safe bet. It's digestible. You know what you're getting. They know how to make one. It's like a listicle, right? So he said the listicle of end things is the easiest essay form, and it should be one the beginning writers can actually take on. Now, how I look at that from the business and content side is that they're easy to write and easy to read. Therefore, they're easy to replicate, and readers like them. So despite my feelings about listicles, we still produce them. But they're important. So during the customer journey, I do this when I'm shopping for things. If I want to find the best snowboard jackets, the best form builders, the best whatever, I always go to Google and search that. So I pretty much get a big lay of the landscape. And I look at several different posts, and I see what people are talking about. And that's, again, back to the whole surround sound thing. If HubSpot's on all of these, people are likely to go to our product page and check it out more. So tactics to get on these listicles, it's pretty simple. We have 3. It's get on the existing ones, write new ones for our blog, and then you use guest posts to write on other sites as well. Getting added to existing ones is kind of the lowest hanging fruit, and it's the most certain. So we know that they're getting traffic. We know they're ranking for the terms that we want to rank for. It's just very hard to reach out to somebody and say, hey, can you pretty please add us to the list? I mean, they already wrote the post. It's a lot of effort. We do get some results with this, but it's not our most fruitful. And then writing new listicles, because we've built that flywheel and the domain authority, we can write one of these pretty quickly and rank pretty fast for it. So we've been doing that for all of our product categories. And then writing new listicles for other blogs. So we partner with companies that are complementary, like Formissimo, Woopra, things that don't necessarily compete with us. And they put us on the top of their lists, and these convert very well as well. This is actually, if you're at a startup, I would recommend doing this, basically leveraging bigger companies that you can work with as partners. They get free traffic, you write the article for free, put yourself on the list. It's an easy way to hack the system if you don't have a domain authority like HubSpot has. The goal is to get on all the lists. That's it. Also, if they are cheeseburgers, they're like free lunch because these things convert like crazy. Basically, the average blog post at HubSpot or any site is going to convert under 1% and usually way lower than that. It's just coming in on an informational search query. People usually aren't going to try to sign up for software that day. Thing is, if you're searching for best form builders or best meeting schedulers, you actually might. So the conversion rate is very similar to a product page, but they're way easier to write and rank than a product page is. So we're getting free lunch from this, basically. Final step is review sites, which I am glad that we heard about the Pipedrive review system as well, because we've seen that bring in a lot of users for us as well. So quick pop quiz, it's basically like, what would you choose? There's a Mexican grill, El Toro Mexican Grill, 34 reviews, 3.5 stars. Not bad, not an A+. And then you have on the other side, Oscar's Mexican Seafood. And they make the best fish tacos in San Diego. But apart from that, they also have 4.5 star reviews, 2,000 of them. So it's pretty obvious you're going to try Oscar's if you're going on that alone. Airbnb, these are two similar places, similar specs, and in a similar part of town. Price range is about the same. One of them's got a bunch of 5-star reviews. One of them's got 3.5 stars and 8 reviews. Pretty clear you're going to go with the higher rated one. And then Loom versus QSnap. They're both free products. They both do the same thing. Loom has 7,000 5-star reviews. How would you not choose that? Basically, reviews matter. We all know this. This is how we make decisions nowadays. We want to validate things and see what other people who use the product actually think about it. Now, for HubSpot, we look at reviews in 5 components, essentially software comparison sites, blog reviews, comparison content, and then forum and social listening. So this one's the key piece. In the software world, you almost have to play with these players now, sites like G2 Crowd, Capterra, Software Advice, because customers go to them to basically form their opinions on things. And if you really care about a product category, such as marketing automation if you're HubSpot, it really helps if you're well reviewed on there. So incentivizing customers who are very happy to go leave reviews. And a core piece of this is actually that you need a product that works very well, otherwise it's just never going to work at scale. So this is where product-led companies can really, really excel, is you have a bunch of happy customers who are absolutely thrilled to go leave you a review. Other customers are always, or other prospects are always going to look at these sites as their final kind of decision criteria on whether they go with you or a competitor. Blog reviews, testimonials, these are pretty common in the B2B space. So essentially, if you can get your best customers and your like agency partners and all that to write an actual review, or if they wrote like HubSpot versus Marketo or something like that, and essentially honest testimonial on your product and like why they love it, that's incredibly powerful, especially to like nudge that customer towards you. And then comparison content on our own site, we actually started creating these to compete for those keywords with G2 Crowd and Capterra and own more of the conversation. I think a lot of companies are doing this nowadays. It's pretty hard to rank these, obviously, like there's a lot of competition out there. But if you can rank these, you can start to steal some of your competitors' branded search terms. So Calendly alternatives or Marketo alternatives or something like that. And we can start to rank for terms like that and possibly steal some of that traffic. Forum monitoring, like I was saying, every time I'm going to buy a product, I actually did this with the Aura Ring too. For some reason, I think Reddit's more trustworthy than other channels. I just feel like it's like less BS there or something like that. So I always search product Reddit review. And I always go and check out the Reddit reviews and see what they say before I buy something. So basically, every time we see something about HubSpot, we try to monitor the conversation. If it's positive, that's awesome, and we'll like help promote it. If it's negative, we'll remedy the situation and get feedback from it. But we're always monitoring these things. And same with social. We've got a whole social and brand team that's looking out for stuff like this. But it's incredibly important that you at least know these conversations are existing and what people are saying about your products. If anything, it's a good customer feedback thermometer because it's like they don't know you're listening necessarily, so you're getting pretty raw feedback, and that's going out to potential customers, so it's pretty important. And yeah, so review sites are basically critical to the buyer's journey because they're at that decision level. When somebody's wavering in between 2 or 3, 4 products, and they could go any direction, and it's like that last nudge before they actually choose a product. Whereas when we talked about content, that's really awareness level. It's stuff like how to do lead generation, how to reduce customer churn. They don't really know what the tools out there in the market are yet. They start to educate themselves. Consideration, you're really looking at the listicles and some review sites, you know, best form builders, best email automation. You're looking at the broad landscape and trying to compare among all different things. Then the decision is really those testimonials, review sites, et cetera. So to summarize our 3-prong approach to being everywhere, product pages, listicles, review sites. For B2B, that's really the core kind of like decision level stuff that we care about. So rank our product page, be included on all listicles, and be on all review sites. So when somebody says, I need a live chat software product, every search result has HubSpot included, or it's at least like a HubSpot domain or something like that. Because that's a chorus or an ensemble or a surround sound effect saying, you should try HubSpot, which makes people super curious and very probable to buy HubSpot. Now, this could look much different if you're B2C, if you're selling mattresses or something like that. You'll probably notice if you listen to a lot of podcasts, the same people appear on the same kind of cluster of podcasts. So it doesn't necessarily mean that search is going to work for you, but I would say like this works for any business because basically you're going to research the buyer's journey, see how people learn about products like this. So the Aura Ring is a good example. It's like, how does somebody learn they have sleep problems? How do they learn about like how to solve those, and like how do they eventually find this particular product? I don't know, I don't work for Aura Ring, but I'm saying it could work for anybody. You map out the influential touch points and where you could appear on those, and you work ruthlessly to find a way to appear on all those favorably. And I just have one point, actually, if you don't get anything else from this, one very important point to tell you, I think this is going to give value. Sapiens is awesome. If you haven't read it, you should check it out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Sapiens is awesome, it's true. Questions? Hold on. Yep.
Hey, awesome talk. Hey, Mary, very good security. I'm curious if you tested that for on B2E, business to enterprise level, or if you done what worked, what not. Thank you.
So I work on freemium. I don't actually touch the enterprise side. We have a whole leads team, though, and that would be more the case with them. But they're basically, I would say they're using more of the same inbound playbook where we get people in at the top of the funnel. It's less specific on the bottom funnel stuff because I think with enterprise, there's more friction involved in the process. Whereas this, as a freemium go-to-market model, is actually incredible because the friction is very low to try one of our products. You essentially land on a landing page, fill out some information, and you get to kick the tires a little bit. So for us, it's very easy to like rank for something like live chat software. Somebody can try it out right away. Whereas I think if you're going for enterprise, it's a little more difficult. But I think the same thought process applies. So it's like, where does somebody search for enterprise software? How do they learn about it? And I would actually say the stuff like G2 Crowd or any review sites is still super relevant. But I would just keep in mind like the level of friction versus motivation, because somebody doesn't have to be super motivated to try HubSpot because the friction's so low. They can basically try 6 different products, and then at that point, a product pretty much has to lead the way. Otherwise, they're just going to go try Calendly or something like that.
Hi, thank you for the speech. I have a rather quick question. I guess all of us working on the US market probably know that getting an article on the external blog is almost impossible if you don't pay money, right? So all the strategy is rather costly. What would be the paid user acquisition cost from search engine optimization strategies in your company?
So how much would we pay to get on a listicle?
No, how much at the end of the day the paying customer from search engine from SEO channel costs to the company?
Oh, I mean, SEO is the major channel for HubSpot. I would say that's the vast majority of HubSpot's acquisition, just because as we started out as a company, it was like we coined the term inbound marketing. So from the get-go, it was all about educating people rather than pushing or selling or something like that. Was that what your question was, basically like SEO as a channel?
I think it's client acquisition cost from SEO as a channel,
paid
right?
user acquisition cost. The person who came to HubSpot via search engine, whatever activities you're making, and then bought it. So.
Yeah, I have no idea, honestly. I work on just freemium portals, so I have no clue. I'd have to check the data. I can't make up answers either because it's a public company. They'd get mad at me.
You could say like $700 and everybody would believe.
Yes, $500.
All right, any more questions? Yes, oh, 1, 2, okay.
Would you use any remarketing to show some advertisement to user who already been to some of your pages?
It's a big idea I have for the next quarter, actually. Yeah, so we do remarketing like most companies do. It's pretty low-hanging fruit in terms of like paid advertising. And this is one of my big ideas for V2. I can't explain too much because I don't have any results or like we haven't put too much effort into this. But we want to do remarketing because I can't give you the exact conversion rates of these listicles, but they're pretty high. So let's say like 10% convert. There's still 90% that don't, and we know they're searching for best form builders. So essentially, we know there's a high intent user base, and we can start to build audiences based on that. So that's one of my ideas moving forward. Also, we have a lot of repeat visitors to HubSpot just because we have a big blog, several million visitors a month, and it's highly likely that somebody lands on one of those best live chat, best form builder articles, that they're going to come back to our site at some point. And we can use personalization software to push a CTA that says, hey, I saw you were looking for form builders, like why not continue shopping here? We've got a testimonial here you can check out. So that's like, I would say version 2 of the surround sound is once we bring in like all the traffic that we know is high intent, building out data profiles on those users who are shopping for those things and starting to do things like personalization on site, remarketing. If they're on our email list, possibly we can do some of that as well. But that is exactly what I'm thinking, so thank you.
I think there was one more.
Thanks a lot. Hey, you blew my mind when you said that you launch a search campaign and then 6 months later you were on the first page. That's just outstanding. Congrats on that. Is there a checklist or like a model that your team is following to actually get on first pages? Because we are in a photography software business, and it's ridiculously competitive. So we are just fighting our way through it. So any hints or tips would be fantastic to know.
Yeah, so I think I'm blessed because HubSpot, like I said, they carved out 10 years of work on SEO and content marketing. So we started out with a high domain authority. And I don't want to remove credit entirely because we built that on the topics of marketing and sales, which a big part of ranking nowadays is being like topically relevant and building up expertise on a given like deep topic as opposed to writing about everything like about.com used to. So for this specifically, we had a limited amount of time. We had a very limited amount of resources. We were acting kind of as a startup within the organization. So my manager and I carved out, basically, we knew we were launching a knowledge base. We knew we were launching customer feedback to start. So we thought about like those product pages as the core things that we wanted to drive people to. We didn't even know there was going to be any freemium components at that point. And we knew, I mean, we did some keyword research. We knew we wanted a product page for knowledge base. We knew we wanted a product page for customer feedback. We knew we wanted those to rank. So then we thought, like, what are the big keywords around that that could be content topics? We're like, oh, how to create a knowledge base. That gets like 5,000 searches a month. Customer satisfaction, that's like a crazy amount, like several, 30,000 or something like that. So we planned those out as our big pillar pages, and then we planned all the cluster posts out, and we did link building to the pillar pages, and like we did very, very strategic stuff. So I think we only published maybe 10 posts, which is very different than the general HubSpot strategy, which if you're familiar is to basically write something on every topic that exists in the universe and hope that many of them eventually rank. But ours was much more judicious, much more precise. We were super hyper-focused on just those 2 pillar pages and just those 2 product pages. So I would say the precision and the focus is probably key, particularly in a competitive industry like customer success and customer services. It's like we had to compete with some big names like Zendesk and Intercom. So yeah, I would say the focus was absolutely key there.
Yep. Hi, Alex. I'm Alex too. I'm a CEO of company Digital Marketing for Digital Services and SaaS. And you told about listicles, and I know that the position where you get in the listicle, it's what you said. It's important to get higher CTR. But I know that all people who created these listicles are demanding a price for getting. Is HubSpot paying for this, or maybe some ideas how to get, especially when you are not HubSpot, because if HubSpot you can be added, but small projects, no, without money you will not get there.
We've thought about it because we've reached out, like I said on the first point, out of like, I don't know, the top 20, if we reach out cold and say like, hey, can you add us to this list? Maybe 1 or 2 will, and I think that's probably a lot because we have the HubSpot brand and they expect maybe some reciprocity in the future. But most of them say either no, like they're a competitor and we just can't get on their list, or it's that paid case where a lot of these sites are basically either affiliate or paid now. And we thought heavily about that. Our paid team didn't buy into it right away, so I'm glad. But this one forum site, they actually have their own forms tool, but they also had paid placements on their list. And it was super expensive, a couple $1,000s a quarter for like position number 6, which, as you mentioned, the click-through rate between number 1 and number 7 on a list is like an order of magnitude. It's like 10% versus 1%. So we're like, yeah, we can't pay that. So we wrote the listicle, and then ourselves, and now it's ranking number 1. And they came back to us like 3 months later, and they're like, hey, actually, can we talk about a deal? Can we talk about a trade here? We're like, no, sorry, it's a little too late. But the long story short is that we had workarounds, and I think it could be worth it if you pay for placement, but I would, yeah, if you're going to do that, you have to basically like carpet bomb the whole like first page, because just being on position number 5 on one listicle is probably not enough to have that like surround sound effect. So you really have to like be precise and like think, what exact keyword do we care about, and what's the search volume, what's the price, and like can we estimate some sort of like ROAS here. And I think oftentimes it doesn't work, especially if you're just doing one of them. In general, I'm not in for buying them, because I think with some strategic campaigns, link building, partnering with bigger sites, you can usually work around that. And like I said, if you have somebody who's not a competitor, who's somebody like complementary, maybe like an agency partner, or we have our whole Connect program, if you can say, hey, we'll write the whole listicle for you, we'll do link building for it, we'll try to get this ranking on the first page, it's free traffic for you, it's somewhat related to your product, you know, put us at number 1 on the list, I think it's a win-win, because then they get traffic and you get like the signups and all that stuff. So that's the way we look at it. Like if I was at a startup, that's what I would do.
There was one more.
Hey, Alex. Thanks a lot. I've got a question. What if there was an emerging player in your market, and let's say a live chat tool, and what would you do? Would you use the same strategies if that company would hire you, for example? Would you use the same strategies to beat HubSpot in their own game? Would you use the same ones, or you would try to tackle this game a bit differently?
Yeah, that sort of depends. It depends on the strength of the competition, and in a crowded market, like you can't hope to compete at least quickly. So it would really depend on the market. I would say like if there was a more viable channel at a startup, I would go for that. You want to exploit that edge as far as you can before the CTR runs out and basically the CAC, you know, becomes crazy high. But in the case of HubSpot, I would actually say we are a new emerging emerging company for live chat. So when we started out with that product, I think we just launched the freemium version like 9 months ago or something like that. So we weren't on any of the lists, and we built a tool actually where we can track the top 2 pages of the search results and like check against everything that ranks and like see if we're on it. For marketing automation, it was like 100% we were on, and then like live chat I think was 0. Like we actually didn't have any mentions. So in that case, we actually did have to like climb our way up a little bit, and we could leverage the brand because people want to work with HubSpot and they always think there's something to get in return. So we could easily like work with them to do guest posts for our site or something like that. But yeah, in short, I would probably use that strategy if it seemed viable. You know, if it was like the most kind of like ROI, if there was a lot of search for that term. But if it was too competitive and there was only like 200 searches for the term per month, I probably wouldn't.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.